Good morning from the National Weather Service in Raleigh. It's Nick Petro with a special weekend weather briefing for Central North Carolina. Today is Friday, August the 30th. It's 11:30 in the morning, and we're going to do this special weather briefing for the period today through next week, through today, Friday, the 30th of August, through the 7th of September. And just want to give you an idea of what to expect, given the fact that it's a long weekend, a Labor Day weekend, and our next routine scheduled briefing won't be until Tuesday. So I wanted to didn't want to leave folks hanging over the weekend without a quick update as to what we can expect, not only for this holiday weekend where a lot of folks will be outside and doing outdoor activities, but also with Dorian lingering out there to our south. I know a lot of folks are wondering what we can expect with that as well. So for folks new to these webinars, you can ask a question. Everybody has a question box on your screen. You can type in a question, and I will see those questions on my end, and we can address those one at a time right at the end of the briefing. Otherwise, we also record these webinars, and they will be available on YouTube as well shortly after this webinar ends. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into our briefing. Now, this is our situation overview for Hurricane Dorian as it stands right now. And of course, Dorian there is east of the Bahamas, well north of northwest of Puerto Rico, and generally on a track to the west. In fact, expecting it to become here a major hurricane very soon, and really basically heading across the northern Bahamas. And current forecast track from the National Hurricane Center shows a landfall in basically the southeast portion of Florida Monday night or early Tuesday. So, and notice how you can see the timing of that. Certainly, it's a very dangerous situation for folks to our south. And the big question for us, though, is what will it do in the longer range during the middle to the latter half of next week? I will point out for us here in Central North Carolina for this Labor Day weekend, we are in good shape. High pressure, as you'll see on this slide, you'll notice the little red dot. That's my little laser pointer to kind of help point things out. But notice this H over us now, high pressure, beautiful weather for us today. And as we head into this weekend, we're looking for dry weather on Saturday as well. We do have some moisture pooling along the coastal areas. Maybe by Sunday, south and east of Raleigh, there could be a shower or thunderstorm. We do not expect any of these storms to be severe, although, you always have to watch out for lightning. Lightning is dangerous regardless of the severity or intensity of the storm. So keep that in mind. If you hear thunder, when thunder roars, go indoors, or if you see a flash, dash inside is a newer saying. So seek shelter indoors or in a car. If you're outdoors and there's no indoor shelter. All right, and then as we head through Labor Day and into Tuesday, again, high pressure is going to be over the middle Atlantic and Carolinas. So most of central North Carolina should be dry on Labor Day. And then our attention for the middle to latter half of next week will be what happens with Dorian. So long range outlooks suggest that Dorian will move to the northeast after it exits Florida, possibly bringing a chance for moderate rain and breezy to windy conditions to the eastern portions of the Carolinas during the latter half of next week. So, of course, it goes without saying we need to stay tuned. Track details will be adjusted as Dorian, as the forecast track of Dorian becomes more certain. But you can see, suffice it to say, by looking at this graphic on the lower right portion of these graphics, you can see Dorian here in vicinity of Jacksonville, Florida, and also notice this front that's basically coming down across the mid-Atlantic region toward North Carolina. So the expectation is that Dorian will basically lift off to the northeast as it tries to, or as the upper level flow tends to move it in that direction, and with an attempt to merge it with that front later in time. So that's the expectation as it looks with the weather pattern. But really, I wanted to take this opportunity to also just share with folks this weekend, really, because as I pointed out, there's a lot of outdoor activities and long holiday weekend. So looking at the severe thunderstorm potential for days 1 through 3, today, Saturday, and Sunday, there is no severe thunderstorms expected across central North Carolina. during any of those 3 days. In fact, no thunderstorms today and Saturday across central North Carolina. And then there'll be a risk for some scattered thunderstorms, mainly afternoon and evening on Sunday, mainly from Raleigh south and east. And basically that'll be the case on Labor Day as well. Better chances right along the immediate coast near the sea breeze. Okay, so let's go ahead to the rainfall, because this too can give us a glimpse as to what may happen with Dorian. As again, just to reiterate, today and Saturday are dry for central North Carolina. These graphics show rainfall amounts. Here's the scale on the left side. So no rain today, no rain on Saturday. Best chance for rain on Sunday will be south and east of Raleigh, particularly along coastal sections. As we get into Monday and Tuesday, Labor Day, and into Tuesday, same story. If you're north of Raleigh and west of Raleigh, you're pretty much dry. The best chance for showers and thunderstorms are Raleigh, south and east. And even at that, coverage won't be terribly great. Most folks will stay dry even in those areas. For Wednesday and Thursday, now we start to see kind of hints in the rainfall prediction that Dorian may lift to the northeast and perhaps bringing a chance for moderate rain and maybe even breezy to windy conditions to the eastern portions of the Carolinas during the latter half of next week. So, that's in the long range. Track remains highly uncertain in that time period. Things will change. Details will need to be adjusted, so you'll want to stay tuned. But the thing that I want, again, people to know is that this isn't going to happen. Whatever happens isn't going to happen until latter half of next week. So we're in good shape over the weekend. We're in good shape for Labor Day, save for a very isolated thunderstorm. Besides that, we're in great shape. It's the middle to mainly latter half of next week, the latter portions of next week, where we'd have any considerations or concerns as it relates to Dorian. All right, so I wanted to share some hazard and impact climatology, right? This is kind of what we would normally expect if a storm takes these various tracks. So I first wanted to show the yellow arrow. If Dorian takes a track further offshore, as highlighted by the yellow arrow, the hazards and impacts for central North Carolina will be minimal or none at all. Mainly, a track like what's shown in the yellow would bring, dangerous marine conditions and dangerous surf to the coastal Carolinas and maybe some rain along the immediate coast. But for central North Carolina, very little, if anything, would be going on weather-wise for us. No major impacts. Climatologically speaking, if that orange arrow were to happen, if Dorian takes a track right along Dorian takes a track right along the Carolina coast, as highlighted by the orange arrow, central North Carolina could see light to moderate rain, mainly from the triangle south and eastward. And of course, that would bring the risk for minor localized poor drainage flooding. That could be possible if a track like that were to happen. Kind of the worst case scenario for central North Carolina and the Piedmont and the Triad would be this red arrow. If Dorian takes a slower track, and believe me, it would be a much slower track, meandering track. If it takes a slower track further inland and northeast across the Carolina Piedmont, as highlighted by the red arrow, a greater portion of central North Carolina could see moderate to perhaps bands of heavy rain, which could lead to localized poor drainage flooding, as I mentioned. In addition, an inland track would bring breezy conditions and perhaps an isolated tornado risk, mainly east of the low center track. So these are sort of the things we have to watch for. Again, if it takes sort of that offshore track, for us here in central North Carolina, not a big deal. If it takes the orange track right along the immediate coast, okay, we're going to have some rain, mainly, east of Raleigh and south of Raleigh, and perhaps, some localized flooding risk. The red is kind of the worst case scenario, but even that, it would depend on what's left in terms of moisture and the strength of the storm. So these are the things we're going to be watching for as we see the track evolve with time. The key point, the main thing I want you to take away from this is it's too soon now to predict what, if any, hazards and impacts Dorian may bring to central North Carolina. Such hazards and impacts will be determined by the eventual track of Dorian, and that track for later next week remains highly uncertain at this time. So please stay tuned to updates from the National Hurricane Center and your local National Weather Service forecast office. That is us here, right here in Raleigh, at the Raleigh National Weather Service office for Central North Carolina. So that's basically a look at what could happen based on climatology. All right. Beyond that, the tropical weather outlook, we have an area of weather we're watching there just coming off the west coast of Africa. Not a really big deal. But let me also point you to tropical webpage, this is a great website where it kind of consolidates all the various types of information here. weather.gov/RAH/tropical. So give that a shot. Give that a look when you get a chance. All right, so I'm going to wrap it up here for this briefing. And again, this summary covers this weekend and through next week for Central North Carolina. As I pointed out, Dorian's forecast to remain well to our south through at least Labor Day. So otherwise for this weekend for Central North Carolina, Friday and Saturday will be dry, and then there's a chance for scattered showers and thunderstorms, mainly from Raleigh south and east on Sunday and Monday. Again, coverage isn't going to be, all that, great for those days as well, very widely scattered. However, right now we do not expect these storms to be severe. Although, as I mentioned, watch out for the lightning. Again, most of the weekend for most folks will be just, pretty good. Highs in the upper 80s to around 90 and lows in the 60s. So no impacts from Dorian for us through this weekend and Labor Day. So enjoy the Labor Day holiday weekend. All right, and then long-range outlook suggests that Dorian will move to the northeast after exiting Florida, possibly bringing a chance for moderate rain and breezy to windy conditions to eastern portions of the Carolinas during the latter half of next week. So we got a whole week to go, basically, maybe 6 to 7 days before we'd start to see anything from that. All right, and just one more time, it's too soon now to predict what, if any, specific hazards and impacts Dorian may bring to Central North Carolina. As such, hazards and impacts will be determined by the eventual track of Dorian, and that track for later next week remains highly uncertain at this time. So stay tuned to updates from the National Hurricane Center and us here at the National Weather Service in Raleigh. So that summarizes what we're expecting for this weekend, for maybe a glimpse at perhaps what climatologically we could expect if Dorian tracks to the northeast, and that's really about it in terms of our future briefings. We'll continue to email out these single one-pager type briefings through the course of the weekend. I'll be here on Monday, despite the holiday, and keeping, working the forecast desk and keeping track on things. Of course, our whole team is here 24/7, 365. So if anything comes up, we will certainly bring you those updates. We're not going to have our routine briefing because of the holiday. We're going to do our routine Monday briefing on Tuesday, unless the weather warrants it. If something, dramatic in terms of impacts for us changes with Dorian, it looks like a bigger deal, we'll do a briefing on Monday. If not, then we'll go ahead and do our routine weekly briefing on Tuesday. So either way, you'll know by email updates. We'll share all those updates in terms of scheduling our briefings by email. So, occasionally check, as you check the weather every day, check your email and for updates from us here at the National Weather Service in Raleigh. So with that,